So tomorrow or probably next week, I will have a report for you about the legal challenges that are already starting for the midterm elections that are 12 days away. Yeah, they're doing it again. There's no question that they're doing it again. We've already seen a number of legal challenges start. And if you want to sort of get a jump on that story, you can Google it and you'll find some examples. Fox News propagandist Tucker Carlson is doing something very dangerous. And I fear, and I believe that the fear is a very rational and sober fear. I fear that they are going to be doing 2020 all over again, where they are priming the right wing and the pro-Trump people are priming their audiences and their voters to believe if we lose, it must have been fraud. And they are priming them to be angry to the point where they may again become violent. Here's a clip from last night's Tucker Carlson propaganda show on Fox News, where he is in an overtly dangerous way starting to say, listen, some of these people, if they supposedly win, they definitely didn't, and you should be ready for that. Then he brings on Glenn Griftwald to talk about it, which we won't be looking at.
Keeps working. It's not about the person, it's about the party. It's not about the individual, it's about the group. And to prove it, they can even run mentally defective candidates who can barely speak.
Now, by the way, when he says mentally defective candidates who can barely speak, we know he's talking about John Fetterman, but Fetterman's not mentally defective. Fetterman had a stroke and has an auditory processing issue. And it's abundantly clear when you see Fetterman write that he can absolutely make the case, as his doctors have, that he has his mental faculties in place. Tucker should be talking about Herschel Walker, but he's not. But he's talking about Fetterman. Okay, let's continue with the video. I'll go back a moment.
Mentally defective candidates who can barely speak, and not only expect them to win, but expect you to accept the outcome no matter how transparently absurd it is. On November 9th, they'll be telling you that John Fetterman got 81 million votes in Pennsylvania, and they'll threaten to put you in jail if you don't believe it. Why wouldn't they do that? They work with Joe Biden. Glenn Greenwald is an independent journalist. His work is on Substack.
Yes, Substack. Okay, so candidates that can barely speak. He should be talking about Herschel Walker. He's talking about John Fetterman. Tucker just makes things up. And the line that he is implicitly going with here is elections we lose are rigged. That's the name of the game. And the groundwork was laid in 2019 into 2020. They tried it in 2020. They may have been able to get away with it in some localized instances, which fortunately they did not. But they got close enough to stealing some electoral votes that, of course, they're going to try it again. And the name of the game now is, if we lose, it was rigged. And if we win, we say nothing at all. Look at what was happening in the Arizona gubernatorial race, where it was a close race. Kari Lake ultimately won. When it looked like Kari Lake was down by a little bit, she and others immediately started with the voter fraud claims. Irregularities here, early voting problem there, mail-in ballot problem here, and on and on and on. And then she ended up winning by a little bit, and they basically shut their mouths about the fraud. If you ask them, they do have a ready-made explanation. And the ready-made explanation is, well, there was tons of fraud and attempts to rig it. We just won by so much that even with the fraud, we ended up winning by a little bit. That's their explanation. And of course, it is unfalsifiable. We are soon going to be putting out a really good white paper guide sort of thing. It'll be free to everybody in our audience of how to approach people when they make claims like this. How can you start and kind of have a conversation where you agree on what is it we're trying to figure out and how do we determine what is the truth? And one of the things that that guide is going to include is a sort of, not a warning, a sort of notice that when the standard is one that depends on you to falsify something that's not falsifiable, it's not even really worth getting involved. And what I mean by that is the voter fraud, election fraud, it was rigged people. They can always say, you haven't definitively proven to me that there was no rigging. And of course, if there is no rigging, it's hard to prove definitively that there was no rigging because there's an absence of evidence for rigging. That's it. burden of proof has been shifted. And so it's really important to consider, is the standard of proof that someone else is putting out an impossible standard to meet? Because I can go to them and say, okay, the number of registered voters and submitted ballots perfectly aligns with the state's population, age demographics for how many registered voters there could be, historical turnout. That all looks fine. The anecdotal reports of specific fraud, double voting, dead voters, etc., we've run them down and found that they are without merit. So we have no reason to believe that there was election fraud here. And they'll say, you have not proven to me. What about that claim and that claim and that claim and increasingly unbelievable claims? So it's very important at some point to be able to understand the burden of proof. You are claiming something that is not supported by the data and is an extraordinary claim, that all of the results we have reflect the wrong winner per the will of the people. You have to prove it. At some point, the burden of proof has to be on them. And unfortunately, when Tucker just goes, listen, they're going to make you accept that candidates who can't speak got a ton of votes. It just doesn't work. He is priming these folks dangerously to reject losses as fraud. And we know it can get very ugly. Look at 2020. Okay. Lawyers losing their licenses, violence, deaths. Okay. We know it can get very ugly, and it may again get very ugly. I'm a big gardening guy. Many of you have seen the videos. We have a lot of fun with it on social media. And the crucial thing to any garden is nutrient-rich soil provided by composting. Composting your food at home means you don't need chemical fertilizer. It also reduces methane emissions from landfills. It reduces your carbon footprint. The big downside is that it can take over a year for food waste to fully decompose, but not when I have a Lomi by our sponsor, Pella. Lomi is a countertop electric composter. It turns food into fertile dirt in under 4 hours, no smell when it runs. It's super quiet, and it means I'm throwing out less garbage. I'm saving space in my trash can outside. The trash can no longer smells like rotting food since it all goes in the Lomi. The benefits of the Lomi just go on and on. I'm so glad I have one. I know you will be too. And you'll get $50 off when you go to lomi.com/Pacman and use the promo code Pacman. But do it fast. They're already 80% sold out for this month. Sometimes they're completely out of stock. The link is down below.